أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: ويسألونك عن ذي القرنين قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرا إنا مكنا له في الأرض وآتيناه من كل شيء سببا فأتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة ووجد عندها قوما قلنا يا ذا القرنين إما أن تعذب وإما أن تتخذ فيهم حسنا قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرا. صدق الله العلي العظيم. As we mentioned in the previous nights, that a group from Quraysh, from the people of Mecca, decided to test Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and put him on the spot to see, is he telling the truth, is he not telling the truth, is he being honest or not. So they went to the Jewish scholars of Najran. Najran was a host for the community of Jews. And they told them, give us your most difficult questions for us to ask Muhammad and put him on the spot. So they gave them a couple of questions. One of those questions was regarding Ahl al-Kahf, the people of the cave. Among those questions was on the soul, and we discussed that last night. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. Among the questions was يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ السَّاعَةِ. They ask you about the hour. They gave them a couple of topics, very controversial, very difficult. They said, ask Muhammad and see the answer that he gives you. Among the questions that the Jewish scholars, they taught Quraysh, they told them to ask about Dhul-Qarnayn. Dhul-Qarnayn is a historic figure, and he's accepted in all religions. They all believe that he existed. It's a historic figure. He existed in history. However, his story is ambiguous. His story, the way it's told is a bit ambiguous. So number one, they asked Rasulullah to test him, to put him on the spot, to see what he has to say about Dhul-Qarnayn. Does he have enough knowledge about Dhul-Qarnayn or no? Two, they wanted to clarify the ambiguity regarding the story of Dhul-Qarnayn. And Allah tells him, قُلْ سَأَتْلُ عَلَيْكُم مِّنْهُ ذِكْرًا. Tell them that I will tell you some of his stories. Now, before we begin to examine these verses in Surah Al-Kahf, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنْ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ is in Surah Al-Kahf, and the story comes after the story of Ahl al-Kahf. Historically speaking, who is Dhul-Qarnayn? This great figure, which the Quran dedicates almost an entire page in Surah Al-Kahf is dedicated to Dhul-Qarnayn. Who is Dhul-Qarnayn? Here, there are several theories and several possibilities. One possibility says that Dhul-Qarnayn is Alexander the Great, the famous Macedonian king, the king of King Philip, his father King Philip. He's his son, and Alexander the Great, who ruled Macedonia, who came to Mesopotamia, who came to Babylon, who reached the farthest point in the east and the farthest point in the west. The very famous king, Alexander the Great, where several cities have been named after him. Alexandria in Egypt. There is Alexandria, Al-Iskandariya, close to Karbala, 30 minutes away from Karbala. It's named after him. The famous Al-Iskandariya in Egypt, it's named after him. Historians say that at least 20 cities in the world are named Al-Iskandariya, after Al-Iskandar al-Maqduni, Alexander the Great. However, personally, I disagree with this opinion. Why? Because Alexander the Great was a pagan. He believed in Zeus and Poseidon and Apollo and these Greek gods. Historically speaking, if you read about his history, you will see that he was a pagan. He believed in Greek gods. And there are certain acts that are behaviors that are attributed to him that I would not like to say on the minbar. It doesn't, it's not befitting of someone to be mentioned in the Quran and praised in such a way. So it's very far-fetched that Dhul-Qarnayn is actually Alexander the Great. If those historical accounts are accurate, maybe historians didn't get it right and it turns out to be that Dhul-Qarnayn is actually Alexander the Great. But at any rate, this possibility is a bit far-fetched. Another theory says that Dhul-Qarnayn was a Yemeni king. He lived in Yemen and he built the famous Sad Mi'rib, the dam of Mi'rib, which exists in Yemen. And among the first to believe in this theory was Ibn Hisham, the famous author, the biographer of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who wrote his famous Sirat Ibn Hisham. He is of this opinion that Dhul-Qarnayn was a Yemenese king. One of the most recent theories on Dhul-Qarnayn and on his character is something that came out a couple of decades ago. This theory says that Dhul-Qarnayn is Cyrus, the Persian king, or known as Cyrus the Great. And among those scholars who hold this theory and hold this opinion is Ayatollah Sheikh Nasr Makarim al-Shirazi in his Tafsir al-Amthal. He strongly defends this theory that Dhul-Qarnayn is Cyrus the Great, the Achaemenian king, Cyrus the Great. And he mentions different proofs and evidence. He says that, the Quran says Dhul-Qarnayn was a just ruler. Cyrus was a just ruler. Dhul-Qarnayn traveled from east to west. Cyrus traveled from east to west. Dhul-Qarnayn, and we'll talk about this tomorrow, not tonight, because our discussion on Dhul-Qarnayn is of two parts, tonight and tomorrow night, inshallah. We'll continue the discussion tomorrow night because it's not enough. One of the reasons why he's called Dhul-Qarnayn, they said he had sort of like two bumps on his head. And Ayatollah Nasr Makarim, he says there's statues today of Cyrus the Great with two bumps on his head. So he has to be Dhul-Qarnayn. And he mentions in his Tafsir al-Amthal, he goes on for about 5-6 pages supporting this theory that Dhul-Qarnayn was Cyrus the Great. These are the most probable theories out there on the character of Dhul-Qarnayn. Of course, there might be other possibilities. There might be other theories. And as we will read about in Tafsir of Ahlul Bayt tomorrow, inshallah, I believe this will come to us tomorrow, that it could be none of the above. Dhul-Qarnayn could possibly not be Alexander the Great. He could not be Cyrus the Great. He can't be the Yemenese king. Possibly he's a fourth character that we hadn't heard about before. So we have to see what the Ahlul Bayt, because the Ahlul Bayt discuss. For example, Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam, he was asked, was he a prophet? أكان نبيا أم كان ملكا? He said, لا, لم يكن نبيا ولم يكن ملكا وإنما شخص أحب الله فأحبه الله. We'll talk about this tomorrow. He wasn't a king, he wasn't a prophet. Instead, he was someone who loved Allah and Allah loved him back. We will talk about more of his character tomorrow night, inshallah. طيب. يسألونك عن ذي القرنين. They ask you about ذي القرنين. The Prophet says, قل. Allah tells him, say, قل سأتلو عليكم منه ذكرى. I will tell you in a bit, I will tell you about, I will relate to you something of this of his narrative. You see, Rasulullah didn't say, Atlu alaykum. He said, Sa'atlu. This as seen, seenul istiqbal. And this shows that Rasulullah was humble. He showed humility. Why? Because he waited for Allah to tell him. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not tell stories from his own pocket, from himself. He would wait for revelation to come down, and then he would tell them regarding the Quran and answer their questions. Sa'atlu alaykum minhu dhikra, meaning wait, and I will tell you, I'll give you a glimpse of who Dhul-Qarnayn was. Inna makanna lahu fil ard. We established him in the land. We made him powerful. We made him strong. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا, and gave him the means to all things. Allah says about Dhul-Qarnayn. Allah gave him a mind, because that is the greatest of all gifts. If you have everything but you don't have a mind, you don't have anything. We give him a brain, a mind, a useful mind. You put it to use. We gave him an army. We gave him money. We gave him wealth. We gave him a strong economy. We gave him human resources. We gave him all the resources that he needed. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَبَبًا فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. He made use of these resources. He made use of what Allah has given him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, some people, He gives them so many gifts, so many things, but they don't make use of it. They don't make use of it. I'll give an example. In Iraq, my homeland, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us 2 rivers. There's some countries that don't have a single river. Allah has given us 2 rivers. Fertile soil, palm trees. Allah has given us 6 imams. The domes of 6 imams, the graves of 6 imams are in Iraq. Have we made use of all these barakat, of all these gifts? Have the people of Iraq made use of them? No. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. Dhul-Qarnayn made use of the gifts and the human resources that Allah Azza wa Jal provided for him. أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا can also mean that he traveled. He traveled course. In Surah Al-Kahf, in the story of Dhul-Qarnayn, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا, it means he moved from one place to another. He traveled. فَأَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَغْرِبَ الشَّمْسِ. He traveled and traveled and traveled, of course not by himself. Dhul-Qarnayn, he wouldn't travel by himself. With an entire army, with an entire fleet, an entire army, he traveled to the farthest point in the west. حتى إذا بلغ مغرب الشمس. He reached the position where the sun sets. وجدها تغرب في عين حمئة. He saw the sun, it appeared to him setting in a spring of murky water. It appeared to him. Of course, the sun cannot set in a spring. How is that possible? For the sun to set in a spring? That's impossible. Most Mufassirin, including Ayatollah Nasr Makarim Shirazi and others, they mention that وَجَدَهَا تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِئَةٍ. He saw the sun setting beyond the ocean. If you've been to the beach, if you've been to the ocean, at the time of sunset, it seems that the sun is setting where? In the ocean, in the water. It looks like that. And the light of the sun is on the ocean. It seems as if it's going in a spring of water. It seems to be that way, but that's not the real case. The real case is that it's not even going into the ocean. It's going beyond the ocean. As the earth revolves around itself, because of that motion, the earth sets in one place and rises in another place. وَجَدَهَا تَغْرُبُ فِي عَيْنٍ حَمِئَةٍ وَوَجَدَ عِنْدَهَا قَوْمًا. When he went to the far west, where the sun sets, he found a group of people. These people, some of them were good, some of them were bad. Some of them were righteous, some of them were unrighteous. Some of them were law-abiding, some of them did not abide by the law. Hence, قُلْنَا يَا ذَا الْقَرْنَيْنِ إِمَّا أَن تُعَذِّبَ وَإِمَّا أَن تَتَّخِذَ فِيهِمْ حُسْنًا. we told him, Ya Dhul-Qarnayn, either you punish them or you treat them kindly. Some Mufassirin, they say that Dhul-Qarnayn was a prophet. Why? Because the verse says, we told him, Ya Dhul-Qarnayn. Allah spoke to Dhul-Qarnayn. And hence this is a sign, this is proof that he was a prophet. Other Mufassirin, they say no, not necessarily. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can sometimes reveal to prophets the way he would reveal to Rasulullah, to Nabiullah Ibrahim, Nabiullah Isa, Musa. And sometimes he would reveal, there would be revelation to those that were not prophets. وَأَوْحَى رَبُّكَ إِلَى النَّحْلِ. Allah revealed to bees. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَىٰ أُمِّ مُوسَى. We revealed to the mother of Musa, although bees are not prophets. The mother of Musa is not a prophet. So just because Allah reveals and speaks to someone, it doesn't mean that he is a prophet. قُلْنَا يَا ذَا الْقَرْنَيْنِ. Either you punish them or you treat them kindly. What does that mean? These people, as I said, some of them were law-abiding and some of them were above the law. Some of them were righteous, some of them were unrighteous. Allah tells Dhul-Qarnayn. Dhul-Qarnayn wasn't just a commander of an army. He had two authorities, a spiritual, religious authority and a military, political authority. So he resembled two authorities. Allah tells him that there will be two kinds of people. And according to your movement, and according to your call, there will be some who will heed to your call and listen to you. Those people will be good with them, reward them. And there will be others that will break the law. They won't heed to your call. They won't listen to you. Those people, punish them. And in any government, in any society, there has to be reward and there has to be punishment. Otherwise, you cannot have a community without reward and punishment. قال Dhul-Qarnayn accepted. He said, قال أما من ظلم فسوف نعذبه. Those who oppress, then we will punish them. We will punish them. We will not let anyone live above the law. We will punish those who oppress, who break the law. ثم يرد إلى ربه فيعذبه عذابا نكرا. He who oppresses, we will punish him, and then he will go back to his Lord, and his Lord will punish him. وأما من آمن وعمل صالحا فله جزاء الحسنى. And those who believe and do good deeds, then they will have the finest reward. وسنقول له من أمرنا يسرا. And we will assign them easy commands. Mufassirin say that Dhul-Qarnayn was laying out his political agenda. You know, during elections, you hear politicians, they say a lot of things, of course, at the time of elections, but as soon as elections pass and they're elected, everything changes. But before elections, we will do this, we will do that, taxes, lands, reform, politics, the wall, all sorts of things. You hear a lot. But after the elections, the rhetoric completely changes. Dhul-Qarnayn was not an ordinary politician. He was a religious politician. He was someone spiritual, someone religious. So when he said something, he'd actually do it. He said, the good doers will reward them. The bad doers, they will be punished. And no one lives above the law. وَسَنَقُولُ لَهُ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا يُسْرًا. And we shall assign them easy commands. Some Mufassirin say that he meant taxes. Those that are good citizens, law-abiding citizens, they will have less taxes. Those who do bad, they will have more taxes. طيب. ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا. We said أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا means what? He traveled course. He had reached the far east. This time he went where? He had reached the far west. This time he traveled course to the far east. ثُمَّ أَتْبَعَ سَبَبًا حَتَّى إِذَا بَلَغَ مَطْلَعَ الشَّمْسِ. From the farthest point in the east, he traveled all the way till the farthest point in the west, to where the sun rises. Matla' al-Shams. Some took it literally, that Dhul-Qarnayn traveled to where the sun sets, and he traveled to where the sun rises. Literally, he traveled to where the sun... That doesn't make sense. Where the sun sets is the west. Where the sun rises is the east. ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ مطلع الشمس وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترا. He found a group of people that he found it, the sun, rising on a people from whom they had provided no shelter from the sun. What does that mean? They had no shelter from the sun. Some Mufassirin say that when he went to the farthest point in the east, he found a group of people that had no clothing. They had no shelter, nothing to protect them from the sun, meaning they had no clothing. And that shows that they were basic human beings. What they, the way they lived was very, very basic, to the point that they didn't own clothing. Other scholars say no, they owned clothing, but they didn't own homes. They didn't own shelter to protect them from the sun. They didn't have homes. They slept in the wild. Other scholars say no, they owned homes, but they lived in the desert. There were no trees or mountains to protect them from the sun. And any of these opinions could be, or they could all be correct at the same time. وجدها تطلع على قوم لم نجعل لهم من دونها سترة كذلك وقد أحطنا بما لديه خبرة. And so it was, and we truly had knowledge of him. We truly had knowledge of the potential that Dhul-Qarnayn had, all the things that we've given him, all the potential that we've given him, we had knowledge of. ثم أتبع سببا, and then he traveled course again from the west to the east, and then he traveled somewhere else. Where? Tomorrow night we'll know. That's another way to entice you to come tomorrow night. Tomorrow night we will mention where is it exactly that Dhul-Qarnayn traveled to, and he built a dam, as we shall see in a couple of minutes. He built a dam. Where is that dam? We'll mention that tomorrow night. ثم أتبع سببا حتى إذا بلغ بين السدين وجد من دونهما قوما لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. He traveled to an area, a mountainous area, and he found a group of people that, as the Quran says, hardly understand his language. لا يكادون يفقهون قولا. They do not understand language. Here too, scholars are in a debate. What does that mean? They don't understand language. Some say that these people were even more basic than the ones that he met in the east, who did not own clothing, who did not wear clothing. These people could not even speak language. Language is the basic sign of any sort of learning and writing. The first thing that you do is that you speak. So if you don't speak, then this is a very, very basic culture and civilization. Other scholars say no, they spoke, but they spoke a different language. Dhul-Qarnayn did not speak their language, hence he did not understand them, nor did they understand him. Other scholars say no, they both spoke and they could understand each other's language, but they could not understand each other's culture. There was a culture clash. لا يكادون يفقهون قولا is that they lived in one culture, and Dhul-Qarnayn came from a different culture. There was a culture clash between them. At any rate, they were able to communicate with Dhul-Qarnayn. قالوا يا ذا القرنين إن يأجوج ومأجوج مفسدون في الأرض فهل نجعل لك خرجا على أن تجعل بيننا وبينهم سدا. They told him, Ya Dhul-Qarnayn. At any rate, they communicated with him, either by signs, by sign language, as some Mufassirin say, or through the help of a translator, or they spoke in his language. They told him that Ya'juj and Ma'juj are a corrupt people, and they come and corrupt our lands. Ya'juj and Ma'juj, and we will talk about this tomorrow night as well, who exactly are Ya'juj and Ma'juj. But basically, Ya'juj and Ma'juj are mentioned in the Quran in another verse as well. And they've been mentioned in the Injil and Torah as well. They're mentioned in the Old Testament and New Testament as Gog and Magog. Gog and Magog. They're mentioned in the Old Testament and New Testament as Ya'juj and Ma'juj. Most likely, they were a people from Mongolia. They were Mongolians from Mongolia. They were barbarians, and they would attack neighboring countries. They were, as some hadith say, they were reproducing by big numbers, and they would attack neighboring countries. So once in a while, they would come through the mountains and attack this people that pleaded for help and asked Dhul-Qarnayn for help. They would come through them through the mountains. They asked Dhul-Qarnayn to build us a wall in between the mountains, build us a dam or a wall so that Ya'juj and Ma'juj cannot come and attack us once in a while. Because every once in a while they'd come, they'd pillage their lands, they'd hurt them, they'd hurt their women, they'd steal their wealth, they'd kill the men, and then go back to Mongolia again. So they told him that, can we offer you money, but you instead, because you have all the resources, build us a dam or build us a wall, a strong wall, so that Ya'juj and Ma'juj cannot come. So this tells us that these people, these basic people who couldn't even speak, or they spoke, but they spoke a different language, they had money. They had money, but they didn't have resources. They didn't have knowledge. They didn't have experience. And I think it reminds us of some people today. Some countries will have a lot of money and a lot of something else that's black, and but they don't have resources. They don't have knowledge. That's why they have to call on this country and that country to come and fix our economy, come and build us an airport, come and build us a university. They have money, they have cash, but they don't have experience. These people, they were very similar to some countries today that we won't name. They had money, but they didn't have knowledge. So they told Dhul-Qarnayn, come and build us. We will pay you. We will pay for the expenses. Come and build us a wall. Come and build us a dam. What does Dhul-Qarnayn say? He said, قَالَ مَا مَكَّنِّي فِيهِ رَبِّي خَيْرٌ. I have money. I don't want your money. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me is more than what you could offer. More than what you could give me. I already have money. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah. Look at Dhul-Qarnayn, a person who would move from city to city, opening, liberating various cities, who had the largest army on earth. And some hadith say that for a while, he ruled the entire earth, or most of where his armies reached. He ruled the entire thing. But he says, مَا مَكَّنِّي فِيهِ رَبِّي. What Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me. Allah. It's better. However, I need your help. I need labor. You want me to build you a wall? You have to participate as well. I need hand labor. I need you to help me. فَأَعِينُونِي بِقُوَّةٍ أَجْعَلْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدْمًا. I don't need your money, but I need your help. I need your labor. Come and I will build you the greatest wall. But when he means the greatest wall, he means it not like some people who said the wall, and it was nothing. It was all baloney. Dhul-Qarnayn says, I will build you the greatest wall. أَجْعَلُ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُمْ رَدْمًا. A strong wall that no one can go through in between. آتوني زبر الحديد. Bring me pieces of iron. So they go and they collect all the iron that they have. They brought it to Dhul-Qarnayn. He had an enormous amount of iron. They brought the iron, and remember, there's two mountains. He put the iron in between the two mountains. He built an entire wall with this iron. Atuni zubar al-hadid. Zubar means pieces, but big pieces. Very big pieces, bricks of iron. Zubar al-hadid. طيب. When they gathered all the iron, they stacked them, they piled them all up together to fill the gap between the two mountains where Ya'juj and Ma'juj would come in with their armies. حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين. Sadaf is the edge of a mountain. Sadafain, the two edges of the mountains. Until he filled the gap. He filled the gap. No one can no longer come in between this gap. حتى إذا ساوى بين الصدفين قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا. He said, now bring me wood. Bring me fire. We have to light up this iron on fire. Why? Why light up the iron on fire? Because if you have just bricks of iron on top of each other, you could bring it down. All you have to do is push it. A huge army comes and pushes it and it falls down. But if you burn it on fire, if you bring fire to iron, it sticks together. These bricks of iron will stick together and will form one piece. قال انفخوا حتى إذا جعله نارا. He said, blow on it. Bring me fire, bring me wood, and blow on it. The iron started to melt, and the pieces went together. It formed one large piece of iron. Then قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرة. Subhanallah, this is a story of thousands of years ago. Allah tells us the story of Dhul-Qarnayn, who had all of these capabilities, who knew about all of this technology and how to build a major wall, a major dam. He said, bring me copper to pour over the iron. Dhul-Qarnayn knew that if you add copper to iron, it will last longer. And today scholars say the same, that iron might, it might rust, but if you add copper to it, it'll stay stronger. So he said, bring me أفرغ عليه قطرة, bring me copper, we will add it to the iron, and I will make sure that your wall will be strong and your enemy will not be able to penetrate through this wall. قال آتوني أفرغ عليه قطرة. طيب. And the plan succeeded. فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا. And indeed, Ya'juj and Ma'juj, they tried time and time again to come and penetrate this wall, to come and go the opposite side and attack this civilization, this people, but they couldn't, thanks to the wall that Dhul-Qarnayn built them. فما استطاعوا أن يظهروه وما استطاعوا له نقبا. When he finished all of this, Dhul-Qarnayn, after his plan succeeded, and he built them this wall, and he rescued these people from Ya'juj and Ma'juj, what did he say? What did he say? That look at me, look at all that I've done for you, now that you have to repay me, you have to... None of that. قَالَ هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. This is the mercy of my Lord. I didn't do this. This is not my job. You don't have to repay me. You don't even have to thank me. All that I did for you, it's from Allah Azza wa Jal. هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. This is a mercy from my Lord. My Lord did all of this for you. He did this. I don't want to take credit. He gives all of the credit to Allah. قَالَ هَذَا رَحْمَةٌ مِّن رَبِّي. However, Dhul-Qarnayn reminds them that don't be arrogant now that you have a strong wall. We've built you a strong wall, and Ya'juj and Ma'juj cannot come. Don't be arrogant. Don't think that you have the greatest wall on earth and it will never perish, it will never fall. No, a day will come that this wall will fall. فَإِذَا جَاءَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي جَعَلَهُ دَكَّاءَ وَكَانَ وَعْدُ رَبِّي حَقًّا. A day will come, but when the promise of my Lord comes to pass, He will level it to the ground, and my Lord's promise is ever true. Which day is that for this wall to fall? The Day of Judgment. The Day of Judgment, when all great things, we human beings, we're arrogant, that we've built this skyscraper, this huge building, this, it all falls to the ground on the Day of Judgment. So Dhul-Qarnayn reminded them of that day. So don't ever be arrogant. He's telling them, don't be arrogant that you've built this great wall. It will fall onto the ground. I conclude here, inshallah. The continuation, drawing lessons from the story of Dhul-Qarnayn. Who was he exactly? What do the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, what do they have to say about Dhul-Qarnayn? Who were exactly Ya'juj and Ma'juj? And where is this dam located? Because this is not a fairy tale. We believe this is a true story. Historically, this is a true story. Where is this dam located? And some lessons that we may draw from the life of Dhul-Qarnayn and from his story, that will be tomorrow night, which will be our final night of this season of the holy month of Ramadan. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته ولا هما إلا فرجته ولا عيبا إلا سترته ولا خوفا إلا آمنته ولا رزقا إلا بسطته ولا شملا إلا جمعته ولا مرضا إلا شفيته ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته. اللهم إني أسألك أن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر من الأمر المحتوم في الأمر الحكيم من القضاء الذي لا يرد ولا يبدل أن تكتبني من حجاج بيتك الحرام المبرور حجهم المشكور سعيهم المغفور ذنوبهم المكفر عنهم سيئاتهم، وأن تجعل فيما تقضي وتقدر أن تطيل عمري في خير وعافية، وتوسع في رزقي، وتجعلني ممن تنتصر به لدينك ولا تستبدل بي غيري. أعوذ بجلال وجهك الكريم أن ينقضي عني شهر رمضان أو يطلع الفجر من ليلتي هذه ولك قبلي تبعة أو ذنب تعذبني عليه. ولأرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات نقرأ سورة الفاتحة مع الصلوات.